You're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Many Indian Umrah pilgrims feared dead in a tragic bus accident near Medina in Saudi Arabia. India's consulate in Jeddah sets up 24/7 control room, hotline number issued. Bangladesh on high edge ahead of a court verdict against former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Awami League's call for a complete shutdown continues. After House Speaker bats for release of Epstein files, Trump reverses his earlier stand on Epstein files, urges Republicans in Congress to vote for release of the files. India signs first ever LPG import deal with the US to boost energy security, targets close to 10% of annual imports for the year 2026. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to meet Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, leads Indian delegation at SCO meeting. And on to the top story this hour. Several Umrah pilgrims from India feared dead after a bus travelling from Mecca to Medina collided with a diesel tanker in Saudi Arabia on early Monday. Some of them were reportedly from India's southern city of Hyderabad. Telangana Chief Minister Revanth Reddy has expressed shock and set up control room for assistance. The Chief Minister has directed State Chief Secretary and Telangana DGP to immediately gather details of the victims and confirm how many were from Telangana. Now, he also instructed officials to coordinate with the Ministry of External Affairs and the Saudi Embassy for urgent relief measures. The number of the control room at the State Secretariat are 917999599754 and 919912919545. Well, in view of the tragic bus accident, a 24/7 control room has been set up in Consulate General of India, Jeddah. The contact details of the helpline are as under 800-244-0003. I repeat, it's 800-244-0003. And the toll-free numbers are 0122614093, 0126614-276, and the WhatsApp number is 05561222301. Also, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has expressed deep shock at the accident. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "Our embassy in Riyadh and consulate in Jeddah are giving fullest support to Indian nationals and families affected by this accident. Sincere condolences to the bereaved families. Pray for the speedy recovery of those injured," unquote. And for more details, we have our correspondent Vinod Kumar joining us on the phone line. Well, Vinod, what are the latest confirmed details from Saudi authorities regarding the number of Indian pilgrims there, particularly those from Telangana who are feared dead or injured in the bus collision?
There were 45 passengers in the bus. 43 were Umrah pilgrims and 2 were the local facilitators. There is 1 reported survivor. So we can say that there are 42 pilgrims are likely to be dead. All the deceased were from Hyderabad. The bus had left Mecca after performing the Umrah. Among the dead were 20 women and 11 children. These are the preliminary reports that we are getting. The accident occurred at a place called Murafat between Badr and Medina around 11 p.m. Saudi time yesterday night. The bus collided with a diesel tanker and immediately caught fire. There is 1 reported survivor, 125-year-old, and he is undergoing treatment. Civil defense have arrived on time and they have put out the fire. These bodies are actually charred beyond recognition. And I have myself spoken with the ambassador who is personally monitoring the situation, and he is also coordinating with the local authorities and with the government of Telangana as well. Embassy of India is also in touch with the Saudi Hajj and Umrah Ministry. The victims and the survivors are in 4 hospitals in Medina: Saudi German Hospital, the King's Heart Hospital, Mikaf Hospital, and King Sultan Military Hospital. These are the hospitals where these victims are being taken care, and these are the information that we have right now. And as you said, we have a direct helpline from set up by the Consulate General in Jeddah. So we can expect an official statement from Ministry of External Affairs shortly on the details of the victims and how and where the survivors are being treated. And that's all from Dubai.
All right, we know the helpline numbers have been issued, but have you been able to verify whether any passengers from Hyderabad or surrounding districts are among the victims, and what are the families back home being told at this point?
The Embassy of India is in direct touch with the government of Telangana, and the ambassador himself is personally monitoring the situation. The information that we have right now is all the deceased are from Hyderabad. So we can confirm that victims were Telangana itself, and directly the Embassy of India is in touch with the Telangana authorities, and all the necessary formalities are being done by both the missions, one in Jeddah and the Embassy in Riyadh.
All right, thank you so much for all those details, Vinod. And moving on, Minority Affairs Minister Kiren Rijiju also expressed shock over the accident. In a social media post, he said, and I quote, "I'm shocked and deeply saddened by the tragic bus accident on the Medina-Mecca highway in Saudi Arabia that claimed the lives of Indian pilgrims. We are in touch with our embassy officials who are gathering more details and extending all possible assistance. My heartfelt condolences to the bereaved families. Prayers for strength in this difficult time," unquote. And in the Delhi terror blast case, accused Amir Rashid Ali, who was arrested by the National Investigation Agency on Sunday, was brought to the Patiala House Court in Delhi today. According to the agency, Kashmiri resident Amir Rashid reportedly conspired with the alleged suicide bomber Umar Nabi to carry out the terror attack, which claimed 10 innocent lives and left around 25 injured. National Investigation Agency has examined 73 witnesses so far, including those injured in the blast. The agency is working in close coordination with the Delhi Police, Jammu and Kashmir Police, Haryana Police, UP Police and various sister agencies. Now, the agency said that it is pursuing multiple leads to unearth the larger conspiracy behind the bombing and identify others involved in the case. And moving on now, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will meet his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in Moscow on Monday to discuss a range of key bilateral and international issues. Dr. Jaishankar is visiting Moscow for the 2-day SCO Heads of State Council meeting beginning today. During the visit, Jaishankar is also expected to virtually inaugurate new Indian consulates in Kazan and Ekaterinburg, key emerging hubs for technology and strategic cooperation. Now, the engagement precedes President Vladimir Putin's anticipated visit to India in early December for the annual summit with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And in a major step towards strengthening India's energy security, India's Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas, Hardeep Singh Puri, on Monday announced that Indian public sector oil companies have for the first time signed a 1-year deal to import liquefied petroleum gas from the United States. The minister shared the development through a social media post on Monday, calling it a historic first for the country's LPG market. He stated, in a significant development, Indian PSU oil companies have successfully concluded a 1-year deal for imports of around 2.2 MTPA LPG, close to 10% of our annual imports for the contract year 2026, to be sourced from the US Gulf Coast, the first structured contract of US LPG for the Indian market. Well, the minister also highlighted the government's commitment to provide LPG at the lowest global prices to all our mothers and sisters. He added that even as global prices soared by over 60% last year, Modi ji ensured that our Ujjwala consumers continued to receive LPG cylinder at just 500 to 550 rupees, whereas the actual cost of the cylinder was over 1100 rupees. Now, the government of India incurred the cost of over 40,000 crore rupees last year in order to ensure our mothers and sisters did not feel the burden of rising international LPG prices. And Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal urged the plastics industry to take a decisive leap towards ensuring 100% reuse and recycling of plastics in line with India's national sustainability goals and growing global demand for circular and environmentally responsible products. Now, he was addressing the Export Excellence Awards ceremony and Platinum Jubilee celebrations of Plex Council in Mumbai on Sunday. Piyush Goyal emphasized that India has the capacity and capability to emerge as a world leader in sustainable plastics manufacturing. He also called upon the industry to invest in advanced technologies, innovative materials and responsible production practices that reflect India's commitment to a greener and more sustainable future. Now, the minister presented 148 Export Excellence Awards to distinguished exporters for their achievements during 2023 to 24 and 2024 to 25. The Indian Air Force is participating in the 8th edition of the bilateral air exercise Garuda 25 in France from Sunday till 27th of November. The Indian Air Force is conducting this exercise with the French Air and Space Force till the 27th of November. Well, the exercise aims to define tactics and procedures in a realistic operational environment. It also provides an opportunity for professional interaction, exchange of operational knowledge, and sharing of best practices between the two air forces. Now, during the exercise, the IAF's Sukhoi 30 MKI aircraft operates alongside the French multi-role fighters in complex simulated air combat scenarios, focusing on air-to-air combat, air defense, and joint strike operations. Well, the Chief of the Army Staff of the Indian Army, General Upendra Dwivedi, attended the Chanakya Defence Dialogue in New Delhi. Speaking at the event, General Dwivedi talked about Operation Sindoor and India's new stance on terrorism.
पानी और खून एक साथ नहीं बह सकता. Blood and water can't flow together. Talks and terror can't be together. यानी बातचीत, संवाद और आतंकवाद एक साथ नहीं चल सकता है. तो हम तो सिर्फ यही बोल रहे हैं कि आप शांति की प्रक्रिया अपनाइए, हम भी उसका साथ देंगे. जब तक ये नहीं होगा, तब जो आतंकवादी हैं या उनके आका हैं, वो हमारे लिए समान मान है. दूसरी चीज़ ये है, जो भी आतंकवादी को बढ़ावा देगा, हम उसको जवाब देंगे. और हमारे पास अगर बैरंग चिट्ठी भी आई, तो भी हमें पता है कि जवाब किसको देना है. हमें उसकी चिंता नहीं है. और जहाँ तीसरी बात है कि जहाँ तक आप ब्लैकमेल करना चाहते हैं हमें किसी चीज़ के लिए, मेरे ख्याल से भारत अभी इतना संपन्न है कि हम किसी ब्लैकमेल से डरने वाले नहीं हैं.
Well, the Chief of Army Staff also talked about the India-China relationship, highlighting the positive trajectory in the engagements on the border situation.
अक्टूबर 2024 से लेके आज की तारीख तक हमारे रिश्तों में काफ़ी सुधार आया है. सुधार इसलिए आया है क्योंकि जो हमारे पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स हैं उनके बीच काफ़ी बातचीत हुई और दोनों का ये संशय रहा कि हम किसी तरह वहाँ पे जितनी नॉर्मेल्सी ले आएंगे उससे हम दोनों देशों का फ़ायदा है. आप देखिए 21 अक्टूबर पिछले साल जब हमारे ईस्टर्न लद्दाख में जो समझौता हुआ था LAC के ऊपर, उससे कितना फ़ायदा हुआ. कज़ान में इसलिए 24 तारीख को जो दोनों की मुलाकात हुई हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर की और प्रेसिडेंट शी जिनपिंग की, वो पिछले साल अक्टूबर में हुई. और देखिए इस बार जो हमारी सितंबर में हुई, जब ये यहाँ गए थे अपनी SCO मीटिंग के लिए गए थे, तो इसमें भी बातचीत यही हुई कि सबसे पहले हमें डायलॉग करना चाहिए, यानी बातचीत करनी चाहिए और हमें कॉन्फ्लिक्ट रेजोल्यूशन ढूंढना है, यानी कोई हल ढूंढना है कि ये जो संघर्ष हमारा हुआ है इसका क्या हल मिल सकता है. तो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ ये हो रही है कि जो हम लोगों का जो सोल्यूशंस है वो हम ग्राउंड पे ढूंढ रहे हैं. उससे क्या हुआ है कि दोनों साइड पे एक लचीलापन आ रहा है बातचीत करने में. दोनों साइड को चूँकि ऊपर की तरफ से भी डायरेक्शंस है कि भाई बातचीत में जितना सॉल्व कर सकते हो, जितना आप सोल्यूशन ढूंढ सकते हो, उतना ढूंढने की कोशिश करो. तो उदाहरण के तौर पे मान लीजिए उन्होंने कुछ कंस्ट्रक्शन करना है, कोई भी ऐसी कार्रवाई करनी, तो हमको पहले बताते हैं। पहले क्या होता था, वो नहीं बताते थे, हम दोनों में किसी प्रकार की बातचीत हो जाती थी, गर्मा गर्मी हो जाती। आजकल वो नहीं होता है। कुछ बनाया भी, हमने उनको बोला कि कृपया इसको हटाइए, ये उचित नहीं है, उसी टाइम हटा लेते हैं। तो एक कहना चाहिए जो ग्राउंड का कॉपरेशन है वो बहुत अच्छा है। अभी जैसे हम बात करें कि डिसएंगेजमेंट काफ़ी तक हो गया है। उसके बाद जब बाउंड्री लिमिटेशन और जो बाकी बातें करेंगे तो उसमें क्या होगा, हमें बहुत फ़ायदा होगा आगे आने वाले दिनों में।
And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. US President Trump hints at possible talks with Venezuelan counterpart after US designates a cartel that it claims Maduro runs as a foreign terrorist organization. UN Security Council to vote on Trump-Gaza plan. And Italy's Yannick Sinner retains his ATP Finals title, beats the world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. And moving on, the International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh's domestic war crimes court, is set to deliver a verdict in absentia against ousted former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on charges of crimes against humanity over the violent crackdown on student protest in mid-2024. Well, the proceedings are underway, and on your screen right now are the live visuals of the courtroom. Sheikh Hasina, former Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal and ex-police chief Chaudhry Abdullah Al Mamun were charged under the International Crimes Tribunal Act. However, her party, Bangladesh Awami League, has rejected reforms promised by the interim government and has also called to rise against ongoing anarchy. Now, ahead of the verdict, the Awami League announced a nationwide shutdown. Party also alleged Yunus-led government of using false cases, violent attacks, arrest and repression to achieve its political goal. And for more, we have our DD India correspondent Naval Singh Parmar joining us from Dhaka on the phone line. Well, Naval Singh, what is the situation right now outside the tribunal at this moment? Are the tensions rising at the verdict nears, and how are the security forces handling the crowds, especially with victim families demanding Hasina's return and execution?
Within few minutes, I think the verdict will be delivered, read out, and
right.
Quite tense atmosphere here in Dhaka, and particularly in some of the areas in Dhaka where the students and the protesters are moving ahead towards the Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's ancestral home at Dhanmundi 32 with the bulldozer. So something may happen, and though there is a tight security arrangement, law and order agencies are deployed heavily in Dhaka and nearby districts, but still there are some news are coming from the suburb area of Dhaka regarding the arson and the crude bomb blast, and crowds are moving towards some of the iconic buildings related to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So something may happen on ground. Otherwise, the common people, the streets in Dhaka are deserted. Very few movements on the roads, but the protester those who were involved during the protest against the Sheikh Hasina, some of them, they don't have a mass appeal nowadays after 1.25 years of the fall of Sheikh Hasina regime. But still, there are some students and the protesters who are moving and who are on the street in Dhaka today.
All right, so we're getting live visuals from the Dhaka courtroom, and that was a correspondent from Dhaka telling us about the verdict is just about to come in a short while from now. And moving on, US President Donald Trump has hinted at holding discussions with Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, who has been in the crosshairs of a US military buildup in the Caribbean. Well, Trump offered no further details about the possibility of talks, though he suggested he would keep up the pressure on the Maduro regime. The Venezuelan Communications Ministry, however, did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk. Venezuela would like to talk. What does it mean? You tell me. I don't know. You want to talk to them? I talk to anybody. I talk to you, right? I talk to anybody. We'll see what happens.
Well, the news of possible discussions between the US and Venezuela came as Washington formally designated what it says is a cartel run by Venezuelan president as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced the decision on Sunday, saying the Cartel de los Soles works alongside with the designated FTOs and is responsible for widespread violence and drug trafficking across the region. Also, the U.S. officials say the designation comes amid a major American military buildup in the Caribbean, including the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier strike group as part of Operation Southern Spear. Washington says the buildup is needed to counter smuggling networks. Well, Caracas claims the move is part of a plot to topple President Maduro, an accusation U.S. officials reject. Rubio reiterated long-standing U.S. allegations that Maduro and senior Venezuelan officials lead the organization, asserting they have corrupted key state institutions. Now, since the U.S. launched its anti-trafficking campaign in September, at least 83 people accused of moving drugs in international waters have been killed, including 3 in a strike in the Eastern Pacific. The U.S. has not provided evidence that those targeted were traffickers, and experts warn the killings may constitute extrajudicial actions. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump on Sunday urged his fellow Republicans in Congress to vote for the release of files related to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, reversing his earlier resistance to such a move. Now, Trump's post on his Truth Social came after House Speaker Mike Johnson said earlier that he believed a vote on releasing Justice Department documents in the Epstein case should help put to rest allegations that Trump had any connection to Epstein's abuse and trafficking of underage girls. Now, Trump late on Friday withdrew his support for Marjorie Taylor Greene, a U.S. House of Representatives member from Georgia, following her criticism of Republicans on certain issues, including the handling of the Epstein files. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a U.S. House of Representatives member from Georgia, had accused Democrats of pushing an Epstein hoax after emails emerged in which the disgraced financier suggested Trump knew about the girls. Now, Greene said earlier that Trump's online criticism had unleashed a surge of threats directed at her. She attributed her split with the president to her support for releasing records related to the late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And moving on, the UN Security Council is due to vote on Monday on a resolution endorsing U.S. President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. Last week, the Americans officially launched negotiations within the 15-member Security Council on a text that would follow up on a ceasefire in the two-year conflict between Israel and Hamas and endorsed Trump's plan. A draft of the resolution welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, a transitional governing body for Gaza that Trump would theoretically chair, with a mandate running until the end of 2027. It would authorize member states to form a temporary international stabilization force that would work with Israel and Egypt and newly trained Palestinian police to help secure border areas and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. Now, the United States and several Arab and Muslim majority nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, called the UN Security Council to quickly adopt the resolution. And on to some sports news now. Italy's Hasina retained his ATP finals title, battling past Spanish world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz 7-6, 7-5. Alcaraz earned the only break point in the first set, but Hasina held strong, won the tie-break and later closed the match when Alcaraz failed to hold serve. Hasina's win in Turin earned him a record $5 million in prize money. And going back to the top story on the Medina accident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also expressed grief over Medina bus accident. He said, and I quote, "Deeply saddened by the accident in Medina involving Indian nationals. My thoughts are with the families who've lost their loved ones. I pray for the swift recovery of all those injured. Our embassy in Riyadh and consulate in Jeddah are providing all possible assistance. Our officials are also in close contact with Saudi Arabian authorities," unquote. Several Umrah pilgrims from India are feared dead after a bus travelling from Mecca to Medina collided with a diesel tanker in Saudi Arabia early on Monday. India's consulate in Jeddah has set up a 24/7 control room for the continuous assistance. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.